A stunning lineup of drivers and cars forms a brand new championship for 2014. Born from FIA GT, the Blancpain Sprint Series runs alongside Blancpain Endurance to form Blancpain GT. Whilst the Blancpain Endurance Series runs races from 3 to 24 hours in duration, Blancpain Sprint Series sees an all-action format during the weekend, 2 one-hour sprint races, and we're guaranteed to see some fantastic racing in 2014. Reigning champion team WRT Audi return this season. Enzo Ede and René Rast in the Audi R8, with the sister car driven by reigning GT champion Laurens Vanthoor. Cesar Ramos replaces long-term partner Ortelli, but Vanthoor is still confident he can take the championship.
Of course, the goal is to win again. We were champion last year, and the only goal can be to defend the title. But for me, there's only the 2 things which count, is to work hard and to make the less possible mistakes. And me and Stefan, we're not together anymore. I have a new teammate, Cesar Ramos, which is still quite new to the Audi and to the team, but I'm really sure he has a big potential.
Lisowski and Abril join forces at Belgian Audi Club to take part in the Silver Cup for up-and-coming drivers, while Gregory Gilver partners the other half of last year's championship-winning pair, Stefan Ortelli, in the G-Drive racing machine.
Yeah, we need to just focus on what we know with these cars. So it's not going to take long. You know, it's still for me WRT which are running the cars. I know them very well. We have new guys obviously in the team. Everybody has to work together better, but I don't think it will take long. We will be there very soon.
Phoenix Racing return with former GT1 world champions Markus Winkelhock and Marc Basseng, but in separate cars. Basseng partners Brit Alessandro Latifi, while Nicky Meyer-Melnhof is with Winkelhock.
I think it's a quite strong year this year. Many good driver lineups, many good teams, many good cars. I think I'm in a really strong car. I have a good teammate, good team. From that point of view, I think we have all chances to win the championship.
BMW Team Brazil are back in force with multiple stock car champion Caca Bueno sharing the first car with Sergio Jimenez, while Matthias Stump is with former Formula 1 driver Nelson Piquet Jr.
I still don't know who are going to be the strong drivers or strong teams, you know. I'm sure the ones that won last year, the Audis, are going to be strong. Nogaro circuit, I've never raced here in my whole European career. It's the first time I'm racing over here, so it's a pretty tight track, pretty difficult, you know. A lot of corners, they are, you know, you have to use a lot of curb, but there's not a lot of runoff areas, so it's a pretty challenging track.
Royal Motorsport runs a car in the Silver Cup for Fuminelli and Colombo, but the star of the show is racing hero and Paralympic gold medalist Alex Zanardi.
Right now, I would love to finish my weekend as well as I did last time I was here to race, where I finished second, and I was very disappointed because that was the end of a long season where finishing second made me lose the championship to Christian Fittipaldi in Formula 3000. But I'm talking about 1991. There were still dinosaurs going around in the bushes of the circuit. But it's kind of encouraging that I know that I still hold the lap record of Nogaro, and yeah, that's good. And I'm sure it's going to be tough for anybody in the field to, you know, to readjust that lap time.
German manufacturers Audi and BMW will be met by a strong challenge from Grassner Racing. The team has a pair of Lamborghini Gallardos, Dutch GT specialist Jeroen Blekemolen with Harry Prochik, and Sasha Halick teams up with returning GT race winner Thomas Enger.
We've made a few improvements for 2013, which is the same car as this year, 2014. And obviously, I believe this car should be even better, in better condition. It should suit this type of track with slow corners, with braking into those corners. This car with engine in the middle of the car should be the one to beat.
The Blancpain Racing Lamborghini is shared by rapid pro driver Peter Cox and amateur driver Mark Hayek. Hayek is relishing the challenge of competing against all the pros on the grid.
Really trying to compete in the overall class, so what is really hard against all the pro teams. hoping to get top 15 overall results, maybe better.
McLaren are represented by the Biotech squad. The 12-seat GT3s are in the hands of Daniel Lloyd and Sten Pentus, while Onidi joins the hugely respected Giorgio Pantano, who recognises the challenge ahead.
Well, for sure, Stefan Ortelli with his teammate will be the tough one to beat, because I know the Audi car are very strong, but also him is very good driver, very strong driver. I believe in this series there are most of the drivers are on the field, are there to win and be on the top.
Mercedes are represented by HTP Motorsport. Dusseldorp and Afaseniev share one SLS, whilst Max Gutz and reigning Blancpain Endurance Series champion driver Maxi Buch attempt to do the double in the Sprint Series.
I'm looking for a double win maybe this year. That's why we're here, to compete with the best and try to win also. And I think we have a good package to maybe realize that.
Fortec runs two SLSs, one for Hetherington and Ibrahim, and one for Toril and Bastian.
The car is very big and very huge, so we are not as good as the Audis and Lamborghini here on this track because of the very tight corners. This is not perfect for Mercedes, but we are working on that. Maybe we can improve the car a little bit, and then we can as good as the Lamborghini in the moment.
Ferrari are also here. Philippe Salaquada is driving with yet another ex-F1 driver, Andrea Montemini, in the 458 Italia.
The competition this year will be very tough because of the Audi, Mercedes and the McLaren, and the team are very, very strong, so we need to be perfect each session.
Here we are then at Nogaro, the Paul Armagnac circuit in the southwest of France, and the 2014 Blancpain Sprint Series starts here. Round 1 of 7, of course, part of the overall Blancpain GT Series, alongside the Blancpain Endurance Series, which we've already had one round of. We have had, over the last few days, some lovely weather down here in the southwest of France. For free practice 1, free practice 2, qualifying, it was sunshine and temperatures, high 30s, track temperature. But as you can see, today it has closed in. It hasn't stopped raining since we woke up this morning, only 18 degrees C track temperature. And it's going to be very, very tricky indeed for those drivers who have yet to venture out on the circuit in wet conditions. Traditional Coup de Pack race meeting this weekend. We have the qualifying race today, and then we have the main race tomorrow. My name is Andrew Coley, and alongside me is John Watson. John, talk us through this fantastic track.
Well, traditional Easter weekend. Race meeting here at Nogaro, 3.6 kilometres in length, 14 corners, the majority of which are slowish corners, but they have that slightly unique aspect of being semi-banked on the way in, so it's not so much about getting into the corners, getting the traction off, and in particular through that first sector, the blue sector on screen, then the long back straight up to about 250 kilometres per hour, and then final sector 3 again, quite tight through turns 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Then the penultimate corner, turn 14, onto start-finish straight.
Start-finish straight is where the cars are sat now, ahead, of course, of going out on a warm-up lap. Now, we've seen a few of the cars already come out and do several out laps. They've snuck out of one end of the pits, round and back in again, just to try and get a feel. Either side of your picture now on pole position, your own Blake Molen, the Grasser Racing Lamborghini, and Lawrence Van Thor in the Team WRT Audi. John, what about these out laps everybody's been doing?
Well, we had no wet weather running over the previous 2 days, and some of the teams actually did ask the organisation, will we get an additional 10 minutes to get a feel for the conditions on the track? First of all, the track is wet, but secondly, the ambient temperature is about 8-9 degrees cooler than it has been over the previous days. Track temperature probably over 20 degrees cooler. It is traditionally a low grip racetrack here in Nogaro, and combine that with wet weather tyres, and it isn't what I call wet conditions. The track is damp, but it gets a scummy, grippy sort of situation. So teams will be trying to get as much temperature into the tyres as they can possibly do on this parade lap, the formation lap, as the cars begin to make their way around the 3.6 kilometres.
So 3.6 kilometre warm-up, one last chance to feel those braking zones and decide whether or not you're going to take a dive up the inside. You can see the spray. Very, very wet indeed. First time, of course, we've seen all the cars on track together. There's only 19, I'm afraid, today. We had one retirement yesterday, which during qualifying. A heavy shunt for one of the two SLSs. And that was Arman Ibrahim dropped it. Unfortunately, his car shared with Ben Hetherington. They won't be out in the Fortec Motorsport SLS today. So 19 cars on the grid. And just having a little feel, as we say, for the grip conditions ahead of a rolling start.
And what you're going to see is what we see traditionally at Nogaro, is the traditional racing line is probably not going to be the line that a lot of the competitors will take. They will go the long way around the outside of a corner, which when the track, there's not the level of spray that you'd expect to see on what I would call a fully wet track, but it is still wet enough that it'll be the outside line. Those that venture down to the traditional line inevitably find there is less grip because that's the more rubbered part of the racetrack, and ironically, it gives up less grip.
Here is the starting grid. Bleekemolen and Van Thor on the front row, the Lamborghini and the Audi R8. Rast and Cox, another one of those Audis and another Lamborghini. It is a bit of an Audi fest at the front of the grid, as you can see. Winkelhock and Ortelli. And then Basseng and Gotts. The first of Mercedes SLS AMGs on the grid. Two BMW Z4s, Nelson Piquet Jr., Cacabueno, Dusseldorf and Montemini. Ferrari there lining up. Row 6, Abril and Zanardi. Sandro Zanardi, of course, returning to racing. Lots to tell you about his hand controls later on. Colombo and Halleck, 15th and 16th. Bastian and Pantano. And just the one car at the back of the grid, that's Daniel Lloyd in the McLaren 12C GT3. Last couple of corners then, before we get this race underway. We've already heard John talking about the grip online and offline. The car's going to be bunched up together. The left-hander is in favour of Bleekemolen on the inside, but it goes directly into a right, so will Van Thor be able to get the jump on him on the brakes? Away and on the gas, and immediately Bleekemolen, great start, moves across the block up the inside. That's Rene Rast having a look down the inside of Lawrence Van Thor. Oh, somebody running wide in one of the yellow BMWs. That's one of the Team Brazil's. PK running wide. No moments so far. Audi out wide, that's the G-Drive Audi, I think, who's run wide, but everybody makes it through turns 1 and 2 safely, John.
Yeah, very busy, but of course everybody really needs to be quite cautious at this stage. Just a quick glimpse of on board with Alex Zanardi and the BMW as the two Brazilian BMWs side by side as they make their way through the double turn 4, then into 5. Key corner here, bit of contact, bit of carbon fibre being damaged, and that is Alex Zanardi.
That's Zanardi, yeah. Zanardi off wide and on the grass, on board with him. Oh, so slippery trying to get it back on, John.
The biggest problem Alex Zanardi has got is the throttle is actually a separate ring behind the steering wheel, so the natural sense of feel and grip that you get through your fingers and hands is different to that through your feet. He uses his legs to basically just brake, and there's prosthetics for braking, and everything else is done on the steering wheel by his hands.
Now, we've seen some significant changes up at the front. I think Bleekemolen has been mugged and has dropped back down into 3rd position. Must have happened in turn 2, I think, whilst we were having a little look towards the rear end of the field. Zanardi has dropped a long way off the back with that trip onto the grass. Sideways again out on the curbs, very, very slippery in the wet. Everybody's still getting a feel for it. A brave look up the inside there.
Yeah, Andrea Montemini in the Ferrari trying to squeeze his way down into turn 11. Very difficult to get a pass unless you're absolutely alongside. But just traditional opening lap of any event where everybody's using every bit of racetrack they can to position themselves and try and force their way through. But as they come across the Lawrence Van Thor, well, they're comfortable 1.5 second lead.
Indeed, and Bleekemolen has dropped down. It's Rast who is in 2nd, Cox who is in 4th. So I wonder what happened then to Bleekemolen in turn 2, John. Do you think it's just a misjudgment on his part?
I think just it's difficult in the opening lap. You've got two Audis which are very, very strong. They know this racetrack so well. The car's been here, raced in every single condition you can imagine. So they will have been prepared for precisely. They know what they're going to get. And for Jerome Bleekemolen, who's probably not driven the Lamborghini, I would imagine, principally that's the problem, in wet weather conditions. He's only had, I think, a brief test in the car before he came down to Nogaro, and that was, I suspect, in the dry.
We saw a brief shot there of Winkelhock coming under pressure in the Phoenix Racing Audi R8. In the background, I think we can see one of the Brazilian BMWs is having a look up the inside. It's not PK, it's the other car who's in. That's Cacabueno, who's taken the first stint in the 2nd car. Lots of attention for PK this weekend as well. We've got a Brazilian film crew here following him.
Yeah, quite a different sort of venture for him. Glad to see him in. The Blancpain Sprint Series brings a lot of experience, a lot of insights, and to some degree probably a bit of controversy, but that's now many years behind Nelson Piquet Jr. But again, driving in these conditions in the car he's probably not had a huge amount of time with. On a racetrack he's still in a sense getting to grips with. It's a big ask, and when you come with a name and a reputation like Piquet, be it senior or junior, a lot of expectations as his teammate Jaguar Bueno seeking to find a way around that Audi, and that's Marcus Winkelhock under pressure from the Brazilian driver coming onto pit straight.
So Bueno is really turning it on. This is a whole lap now of pressure through the long right-hander. John, not too many places to pass, but you know, is there more opportunity? Last year we saw Sebastian Loeb take forever to get past somebody, finally managed to get it done on the straight, but I mean, what are the opportunities in the wet?
Well, let's say in this section of the circuit, we've come out of turn 3, we're coming through turn 4. Not an awful lot you can do, it's more about positioning. Jaguar Bueno is trying to put the BMW in the position where he'll get a good run off turn 5, then the quick flat out onto turn 6, onto the back straight. So he's doing his preparation, not to pass here, but to try and get past down at the end of the straight. But you see, Audi have got good straight line speed. Jaguar Bueno may have been quicker out of turn 6, but couldn't translate it into an overtake into 7.
So the cars, of course, all fairly well matched. Little advantages for some at some circuits, but very clever system where the cars are balanced performance-wise between the different tracks, so it's fair for everybody through the season. If he can keep applying that pressure, I mean, I say last year, how long did Loeb apply pressure for? 7-8 laps before the driver in front cracked, and that's the key, isn't it? Sticking the headlights out in the mirrors, just saying, I'm here, I'm going to have a crack at you in a minute. So we see a pass there, Lamborghini up the inside of the SLS.
I think that was McTominay, and the Ferrari just squeezes through.
Yeah, Afasaniev dropping back.
Getting past the Mercedes-Benz, and that was turn 12. And Andrea Montermini, very, very experienced driver, another Ford driver coming through from single-seaters into GT racing. Has a huge amount of experience at all sorts. Part of the McLaren that would tear off on the windscreen is already flapping. So it's distraction for a driver. Probably he won't be able to see that in reality. It's out of his eye line. Nevertheless, it may be flapping on the roof as we follow the tail of the field with Montermini in the Ferrari. And he's up to 11th place. Steph Dusseldorp, who's the driver in the Mercedes, who's just lost that. He'll be disappointed. The Mercedes, really, in these conditions, it's a slightly softer car, which actually should help it, but it is physically a large car, and particularly around this part of the racetrack. It's not the most nimble, and that's probably where the Audi and others maybe gain an advantage on the Mercedes.
Stefano Colombo there in the BMW, being passed by, that's Bastian, I think, in the second of the four tech cars. SLS, as we said yesterday, unfortunately a big shunt for one of those cars. Whoa!
The two McLarens side by side. And in fact, this is Pantano, Giorgio Pantano, and his sister car. He's going to try and make the cut back. He's not close enough or far enough alongside, and working hard on the steering wheel.
I was going to say, John, huge amount of input on the wheel there.
Well, the McLaren is a very, very quick car, but it's a very knife-edge style car. So in these conditions, you've got it or you haven't got it. That's grip I'm talking about. For Giorgio Pantana, again, first time in a McLaren MP412C. Probably first time in the car in these conditions as well, other than the outlap here, a couple of outlaps he might have done to acclimatise. Whether drivers and engineers decided to make changes to their car, traditionally you might ease off a little bit in roll bars, possibly consider putting a little bit more camber into the rear wheels just to give you that little bit more bite to prevent the sudden rear end snap oversteer, which can affect you and hinder you, in fact, in terms of progress.
Lovely on board there. You can see the effort turning in at one point, a little bit sideways just on turning, then feathering the throttle and trying to get the power down. Those two cars close together, John, what do you do about that when it's a teammate in front of you? You don't want to fire them off, but likewise you need to make progress.
You have to make progress. You've just got to find a way around them, simply. And there are parts of the track, and I always feel it's coming out of this corner of turn 5, that you do your homework to get into position, to get under the rear wing of the car, whether it's your teammate or a competitor, to then use the slipstream of the car. But you can see the Audi going slightly defensive, coming down the straight just to prevent the BMW getting the run down the inside, but actually staying on the left-hand side of the straight and using the better entry into turn 7 can pay dividends, because you can get a good run and put yourself in position to try and make a pass Not certainly down to this part of the track, but maybe a couple of corners earlier.
Two McLarens locked in a little battle in between them. The yellow stripe across the top of the one car tells you that's Pantano.
And I think he's gone alongside this time because he dives up the inside into turn 10. So Giorgio Pantano, all that single-seater experience, GP2 champion, and he's just now found a way around the sister car, and he will feel a little bit more content that he's making progress. But you can see I've just turned in the back of the Pantano McLaren, sliding as Montimini tries to look up the inside into turn 13. Again, difficult place to do it.
Up at the front then, at the moment, Van Thor is leading with by 3.9 seconds. Rast is in second place, Bleekemolen third, a further 2.1 back. So it seems that Van Thor is making a bit of a run for it, but still this fight continuing.
Yeah, and it's Marc Passin who's getting all the heat from Montermini, Andrea Montermini in the black Ferrari with the red and yellow flashes down the side. Only one Ferrari here this weekend, glorious as it is. And of course, with a great V8 aspirated engine, ended that very tight and then even tightening apex, late apex into turn 4. Let's look again at Giorgio Pantano as he makes this move, coming out of turn 9, gets alongside the sister car in position, track position. It's all about position, just like buying property. It's all about location, location, location.
Fantastic job. We see Bueno is still piling it on. That's Winkelhock in the Audi. Some alternative lines. Apparently the rain has stopped. We had a signal from the pits that the rain has at least stopped falling.
And Montermini gets up the inside of Marc Passin, a clean overtake. Passin didn't really put up much of a fight. I think he thought maybe let him go, he's quicker than me, we'll see what happens. We've still got the mandatory pit stop coming up at 25 to 35 minutes into this race.
Passin's been running quite a wide line, John. If you look at what he's been doing, okay, admittedly he's been defending his position, which he's now lost, but was he looking for grip offline, or was he just running wide? And then in the end, of course, he's been taken.
Principally, if you're going offline, you're looking for grip on the outside of the corner. That's where, in these conditions, you will find more grip. There are some corners, such as coming through 13 and turn 14 onto the start-finish straight, where you'll take the traditional line. It's mostly in the low-speed corners that you might go off the traditional line, slightly higher in the corner. Remember, the lower-speed corners here, most of them have got a degree of banking, so there's not a problem of holding that higher line, as opposed to some of the quicker corners where you would more likely follow the traditional racing line.
There's the overall as it stands at the minute, a 5-second lead. Now, John has already mentioned we've got the mandatory pit stop in the middle of the race. That will see the drivers change. For race 1, the qualifying race, driver 2, if you've got an entry list in front of you, the second nominated driver takes the start of this race. And the first nominated driver will take the start of tomorrow's main race. The swap halfway through. Going to be, if it dries, John, when it's not raining now, can it dry out? Is there going to be an argument for leaving your pit stop as late as possible and maybe taking a risk on slick tyres?
I think it's a big gamble. We've seen people in the past in conditions almost identical to these right now try the slick tyre route, and it all looks like it's possible, but inevitably the track doesn't dry out. We need a sudden rise in ambient temperature, which will drag the track temperature up. We need a lot of wind to come in and help blow the moisture off the track. This track, in this condition, I suspect, will be a race won on wet weather tyres.
Kaka Bueno, last couple of laps, has been up on the car in front. He's chasing Winkelhock, the Audi, with the red flashes on the front aero, on the corners of the bumper. Bueno is all over him. Just doesn't seem able to capitalise. Is one car stronger than the other in a certain part of the circuit?
Well, we think maybe that the BMW has got the benefit of downforce, but it might be draggy. It is actually quite a large car. When you look at it close up, the frontal area of the Z4M is quite big, whereas the Audi is maybe that little bit more slippery in a straight line as this battle for second place. Johan Bleekemolen getting acclimatized to driving in the wet in a Lamborghini. Remember, he's made his name principally in driving Porsches and all variety of Porsche championships. Now in the Lamborghini, V10 power, and I think he's even driven a Chevy Corvette. I mean, if you want something that's as radical as mid-engine V8 power, just a little dive down the inside, and can it stick? Well, the BMW's got the outside line again, coming into turn 4, all the long way round. The Mercedes, well, just sneaked that position.
There's Colombo in the BMW and Bastian in the SLS. Bleekemolen, interesting. And another look at the end of the straight, up the inside. Maybe I thought that was Bueno and Winkelhock, but it's not. That's Piquet Jr.
Yeah, Nelson Piquet Jr. He's having a major go at the Audi ahead. So Nelson Piquet, there's the onboard shot looking at Nelson Piquet. Is he a left foot braker? He's on the throttle. You can see that the right foot's on the throttle. The left foot will be on the brake because effectively with the paddle changes on the steering wheel, there's not very much work for your left foot in the left part of the footwell. So Goetz just ahead of the Mercedes, the Audi behind, Piquet bringing up the tail of that battle, which is raging basically over 5th place.
This was yesterday where we saw the SLS fly off, a very similar shot to this on board. A look up the inside again. Was he just showing his lights?
Well, Stefano Telli will race till the cows come home, and he is very, very keen. You can see how much work going on the wheel. He's won here in the past. He is, if you want to name one Audi driver, he's the name that will always spring to mind. And this year he's driving in the G-Drive Racing as opposed to the WRT team, which is perceptually the full-on works team. But all these Audi R8s effectively are all the same specification. It's only small detail. Again, Otelli using the long way round turn 5 to try and get a run, as Jerome Bleekemolen is doing, trying to find a way past Rennie Rast. He's closed right up to the rear of that 2nd place Audi.
Now, Bleekemolen has not raced here at Nogaro before, which is why yesterday's pole position was extremely impressive, and maybe that's why it's taken him a few laps, John, to find his way around here in the wet. You know, first time racing here, he's had 3 days of great weather, goes off for pole position, and unfortunately got mugged on the first lap.
Yeah, and I think that was just being cautious and knowing that the 2 Audis that got ahead of him are driven by drivers who've driven these cars in these conditions for year upon year here. Dives up the inside, turn 12. Oh, very
nearly
close.
Contact between the two. Looked like the Audi struggle for traction there. I think he's going to come back up the inside. It is Bleekemolen, makes the pass stick. Great job.
Yep, excellent by Jerome. He forced that issue. He forced Rennie Rast wide on the exit of 12. Rast got the left rear tyre off the track onto the what you might call the rumble stripper curb. Probably spun up the rear wheel, which slowed the car down momentarily and gave the momentum back to Jerome Bleekemolen, who's taken 2nd place. Some 9.5 seconds the last time they came across the line behind race leader Lawrence Van Thor. So let's look
another
again.
Look. Yeah, sideways on the exit here, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, he gets up the inside, Rast taking the wide line, and then suddenly the Audi just clipped that little bit of concrete on the outside, gave the momentum to the Lamborghini. Jerome Bleekemolen on the inside into turn 13. He can now slow Rennie Rast down, but he takes the line he wants for the final turn onto pit straight.
Fantastic to see a few different overtaking opportunities opening up with the weather that we've got here at Nogaro. You mentioned he's 9.5 down on Van Thor. He was closing the gap, Bleekemolen on Rast, around a second a lap before he caught up with him up the inside. SLS 63 is Bastian.
Yeah, they're having a good old battle. The second of the 2 McLarens, that's driven by Bastian and the Mercedes as they go through these technical parts of the corner onto the main straight. So the McLarens in the hands of Giorgio Pantano there, you can see him pulling away, and that's just simply the quality of the driver. A driver that really, like many young men, are now finding that this is an avenue where they can enjoy being competitive, make a living, and they've got good motor racing.
Oh, we've got the Silver Cup for that this year as well, John, haven't we? Where both drivers in the car have to be under 25. Quick replay. Talk us through this.
Yeah, it enters into turn 4. This is the long. So the Mercedes just puts its nose up the inside, takes track position. The McLaren feels it can still make its way around the outside, but it's going to be difficult. And eventually the Mercedes just gets the advantage. Maybe a little bit more compliant than the Mercedes gave it, slightly better bite in the middle of the corner, and then pushes forward.
Quick shot there of Sasha Halleck and the Lamborghini. So the gap at the front is still 9.6. It was interesting, the moment Bleekemolen got up into 2nd place, our timing screen showed that he was going very quickly, and then Van Thor put in a purple sector time, instantly responded. So he now knows he's going to be chased.
And we're just getting a glimpse really of Alex Zanardi, who went off here on the opening lap. Remember, Alex Zanardi, first of all, is driving this race as a solo driver, taking into account the issues of not being able to get in and out of the car as a fully limbed person can do. And he also has got the steering and throttle controls all in one on the steering wheel. And in these conditions, I mean, that is really, really a handicap. I mean, one thing steering the car with your hands, and having your foot to control the throttle, but to do both inputs on the steering wheel is tough.
That's the G-Drive Audi there. Looked like it had run wide. Didn't quite see what happened on the way into that last turn.
Yeah, Stefano Telli trying to get past Max Goetz in a very competitive, probably the most competitive of all the SLS Mercedes-Benz here. Stefano Telli never ever knows the meaning of give up. He will push, even if he's got nothing left on that Audi, he'll still push.
Oh, big handful of opposite lock on the exit there. Is the grip coming to them, John, or not? We say the rain stopped, we can still see spray. Is it going to get better before it gets worse?
Well, there's no indication, and I don't anticipate an indication of a drying line. Ambient temperatures low, track temperatures low, no wind, and it is just the nature of Nogaro as a racetrack. The one thing that Stefano Telli has got in his favour is he's driven an Audi R8 in these conditions over the previous years, so he knows precisely what he can get from his car. There's the lead car. Look at the gap.
At the gap, yeah.
9 and 10 seconds by anybody's reckoning.
He is being pushed by Blancpain. And again, Blancpain, who you can see coming down the straight now, did a purple sector in the last sector of his last lap. So he's certainly not given up either. We've got 40 minutes of this 60-minute qualifying race to go. Not so many points on offer today, of course. This is all about grid position for tomorrow's main race. And great if we had some decent weather for that, although I must admit this sideways stuff in the wet is very, very exciting indeed.
Yeah, René Rast has dropped just over 3 3/4 seconds behind the second place Jerome Bleekemolen in the Lamborghini. He's got a further 10 seconds to make up. The problem for Bleekemolen now, he's got clear of René Rast. If we watch this battle going on again, there's Max Goetz and Stefano Telli battling away, and into turn 10 as dives down the inside. So the Mercedes gets through the McLaren. That was like a
looked very wide, didn't it? The McLaren was very, very wide. Zanardi has caught up to the back of those who were fighting for the lower position, 17th, 18th, 19th, we just saw.
And that's the Mercedes getting past the Pantano McLaren. So we see Bastian in the Mercedes-Benz has made a pass on Giorgio Pantano. Parts of the track you're beginning to see a shade change on the track surface. That's coming through these turns 11 and 12. But as far as the rest of the racetrack is concerned, it is very, very slick, very slippery. And really, the wet tyre is just a tyre. It can't clear the water because there's not enough water on the racetrack to clear. It's just a slightly different compound, softer compound to that of a full dry weather slick tyre, which in these conditions, with this temperature, would be wasted time.
Zanardi at the back here in car 33, stuck behind his sister car. 34 has Colombo at the wheel at the minute. I wonder if he might let Zanardi pass to have a little crack at the cars in front. A long run down the straight. You can see the SLS taking a defensive move.
Well,
this is before the pit window.
Yes, the pit window hasn't opened yet. Now, whether somebody's going to try and put... Is that a
puncture? It looks like it's another set of wets.
No.
Another set of wets out, so it looks like a puncture. Piquet called.
Yeah, that's a very, very big setback for Nelson Piquet Jr.
Front right.
Where did that come from? Was that due to contact? Was it due to maybe aggressive use of the curb? Whatever it is, it means he's got to put on one wet weather tyre on the right front, and then he's got to wait until the pit window opens, which is going to be in 2.5 minutes' time. So any chance of Piquet Jr. getting this car, let's say, into the points, which are only down to 6th place, are pretty much gone.
He was a bit unlucky there as well, looking at timing. That was very early in the lap, John. He's punctured it before he's even reached the first sector point, so he's had to do a whole lap on a deflated right front and has lost loads of time. Now 2 changes, you say, in for a puncture and then in for the mandatory pit stop, which if it'd just been 3 minutes later, of course, it wouldn't have been so bad.
No, I mean, it is unfortunate. It depends where you pick it up, but it's interesting to know that whether that was contact, whether it was maybe judicious use of the curb, it was the left right front. So what caused it? Maybe we'll get that story and have it for tomorrow.
Mortelli in the Audi, chasing down Goetz in front of him in the SLS.
A little bit further down the field, Mark Hayek chasing the McLaren. That's
Halleck,
Lloyd,
yeah, Sasha Halleck.
Yeah, and Daniel Lloyd in the McLaren. Again, you can see the camera's even struggling in the sense of visibility, because while there is no rain, It's grey, the racetrack's grey, the windscreen wipers are doing their best, but there's not enough really rain falling to help as the two sister BMWs, Alex and Audi, the fourth of those 4 cars. And Alex, a racer to his core, whatever it is, racing car, Indy car, Formula One, wheelchair, he is absolutely, and Hayek pulls out. That's an easy defence now, looks to go down the inside,
double
contact.
dummy. I think he's going to get it done.
He has.
Did Lloyd run wide there?
Well, maybe he saw the...
Or sideways from Lloyd, all the way through that right-hander as well.
Yeah, I think they saw the Lamborghini coming, so we saw Hayek, Sasha Hayek, stuck his nose in the inside, did the right thing, gave the Lamborghini working room, and of course in doing so has given up the position, but at least the 2 cars can continue, and they're both undamaged. Now, the first of the 2 BMWs looks to slide down as well, sister car to Alex and Audi.
Colombo at the wheel of that. Lloyd looks like he's in a spot of trouble here. Here's a replay of it. It was a double dummy out towards the left and then up the inside, and a fantastic job. And through the long right hand, you can see Lloyd sideways there in the middle of the corner.
Yeah, it's just a question of whether the car has been set up for wet weather conditions or whether they've just kept it as it is in the hope that it may dry out. As I've said, the McLaren is a very, very competitive car, but it's not maybe the easiest of cars for the lesser experienced drivers. Colombo gets up alongside the McLaren again, losing ground. So the McLaren
Just
really beginning to struggle. Daniel Lloyd losing positions. Alex and Audi now on the tail of the second biotech McLaren. And Alex and Audi, he knows what motor racing is all about, using again the long way around to try and get track position. Now we are on board.
So
you can see the throttle.
Yeah.
Gear changes. Flat out through turn 6, all the way down the main straight.
I had a fascinating chat with him this morning. He ran me through all of these controls. What was really interesting is his prosthesis are set up differently. His right prosthetic leg has less damping in the knee joint so that he can brake properly. So that's the level of detail to which he's gone. He said everything in the car is a compromise because the ideal position for his leg interferes with the steering wheel. The ideal position for the wheel is in a different position. Absolutely fascinating, the effort they've gone to. Great battle going on here.
Yeah, Montermini all over the back of Otelli. Otelli first, well,
Pit
second
window
car
open.
in. So the Mercedes and so Maximilian Götz and Stefano Otelli in at the earliest opportunity. And it's going to be important if we can get a little glimpse of the pit lane to see if they do go back out on wet weather tyres, which I believe everybody's going to do. There you can see the conditions in the pit lane. I don't imagine anyone's going to do anything else but another set of wets.
Here we go then, first of our pit stops of the Sprint Series season. 2 mechanics, 1 nut gun, that's all they're allowed. They have to do all the work on the car. There are other people allowed to do things like clean the screen. That's designed to make sure that it takes long enough for the drivers to do the driver change. And that's why there's no penalty for Zanardi not to have a driver change. It would take longer to change the 4 wheels than it would to do the driver change anyway. So no penalty for Zanardi not having to have a driver change. Good clean stop there. 4 cars in the pits at the moment. Near the limiter there, on the way out of the pits. Back out on wets, we think, John?
I would say so. I think the conditions are not improving. In fact, looking to the west, I think from where we are in our commentary booth, it's getting more and more grey. I would not be surprised to see rain begin to fall. So I don't think anybody in the pit lane is going to roll the dice and take a set of slick tyres. It would just be, I mean, too big a gamble.
Sasha Halleck,
Thomas Enger in that car.
Yeah.
And Thomas Enger will undoubtedly bring performance to the number 27 Grasser Racing Lamborghini. One of, I think, our all-time favourite GT drivers. Brings joy to everybody from the minute he walks into the paddock. Not necessarily fellow competitors, but certainly to the commentary teams.
This is Cacabueno in for his pit stop. Watch the drivers. Very fast change there. They'll assist each other with the harnesses.
Yeah. Sergio Jimenez takes over the car from Cacabueno. Jimenez was very quick in the first segment of qualifying on Saturday. So this Brazilian team, I think, having spent a year in the Blancpain Sprint Series last year, getting to grips as we have a little bit of a fumble from the team as the 2 gunmen get out of the way. So the Brazilians have been getting accustomed to the temperature, which is very un-Brazilian here today in Nogaro. Of course, say track temperature, as René Rast just ahead of the Lamborghini, that is.
Lawrence Van Thor continuing to lead this race, 11.6 seconds now ahead of Bleekemolen. Those two guys still duking it out, but neither of them has come in for a pit stop. Seeing a lot of movement. Of course, it'll all settle down once we start to see who comes into the pits when the window shuts with 25 minutes to go. So you could leave it really late, John, and see if it dries out, but as you say, I think it'll be a gamble too far.
Well, in the case of Lawrence Van Thor, he's just increasing the gap consistently, and he's in the rhythm. So why not just stay out? He's going to be handing the car over to Cesar Ramos, the Portuguese driver, who's probably that little bit less experienced. So give Van Thor the maximum opportunity. But car circuit marker pull just on the line into turn 1. This is the number 2 car, which is now still being driven by René Rast, so still in second place. So the top 3 have yet to make their pit stops, and ideally they're going to stay out until we get to basically 33.5 minutes or 34 minutes before they then, depending where they are on the racetrack, make their pit stop.
Bleekemolen in second has gapped Rast by 10 seconds. Interested to see what happened in the little battle between Zanardi and also Daniel Lloyd. Has Lloyd been in and changed?
There's the view as they come down the main straight. So the BMW, Audi, McLaren, Lamborghini, 4 different makes, all virtually the same speed down the straight. So on the brakes into turn 1, Audi takes the long way around, and that's still Marc Bessang behind the wheel of that car down. And that disappointingly, although he's found position more through other cars making their pit stops.
You could stay out for a few laps now if you were in traffic, of course, and try and make a gap before you go back in, maybe slot in ahead of a few people if you felt you're being held up. I think Zanardi could leave it fairly late if he wanted to. He was caught behind a gaggle of cars. Daniel Lloyd has swapped driver with Sten Pentus. So Pentus now at the wheel of the McLaren, which is at the back of the field.
René Rast running in 3rd place, so he's dived into the pit lane. So the 3rd place, Audi Rast, going to be handed over to young Belgian driver Enzo Eid, who's been elevated up into the WRT team this season. So there's been a mix and a match of the drivers who raced WRT and who raced independent Audi teams last year. So Eid coming into the WRT, Ortelli and Winkelhock going to Phoenix Racing in the case of Winkelhock, and G-Drive racing for Stefano Ortelli. So still 12.5 second gap between first and second, and we've now got what basically we're going to have 3 minutes before the pit lane will be closed. So expect to see the first 2 make their way in either on this lap or at the very latest 1 more lap.
Not sure that was the fastest stop there. They started with the front wheels and had a slight delay on getaway.
Yes, Enzo Eid maybe not quite getting everything rolling as quickly as he should have done. That's the pressure that you have when you're in a team like WRT. You're expected to perform at the top of your game in every element, getting into the car, getting out of the car, and getting the car rolling once the car has come down off the jacks.
So the Blancpain Lamborghini leaving the pits there. That is now Mark Hayek, who is at the wheel and in 5th place at the moment. So of course a couple of pit stops still to go, but great job by Peter Cox. They're a pro-am pair, Cox the professional and Hayek the amateur driver. Doing a great job so far, that pair. Let's see how many of those places you can hang on to in the wet.
Yes, I mean, it's by the time they got, we're what, 28 minutes into this race, whatever, almost half distance in fact, and just over half distance now. You know where the racetrack is giving up grip. You know what your car is doing. You've had to make certain adjustments. As the Ferrari was driven by Montemini, so 90, and that still has Salaquada's indicated being in the car, and it is Felipe Salaquada in the Ferrari, having been given the car by Montemini, whichever way you choose to mention it. Race leader is still that almost now 13-second advantage over Jerome Bleekemolen in the 2nd place Lamborghini. I mean, he just makes it look so easy. It's precise, it's clean, there's no overdriving, there's no pushing the car into the corner, there's no overuse of the throttle on the exit of the corner, not running over the curb, running out to the curb, but not overusing the curb. And that's the advantage of running in the lead. You can do pretty much what you need to do to make sure you're the quickest car on the circuit.
Continuing as well to extend that gap. Look at that now, 14.3 seconds back. giving himself a very, very nice cushion indeed. Should they have any problems in the pits, in theory, they should get themselves nicely back out in front of Blancpain. And we've still got Winkelhock out in third.
So Van Thor is in, and he had just under 2 minutes remaining before he decided to make the pit stop. So Lawrence Van Thor will come in, hand the car over to Sergio Ramos, as this will be the first time the Lamborghini's actually led, but it's coming into the, well, he may technically lead, depends just where he crosses the start-finish line and the traffic behind. So Blancpain comes in, and he's still credited with being in second place.
Van Thor's in as well, so just 2 cars left to pit now. Winkelhock in the number 6 and in the number 85. We're not sure on that. Dusseldorf is listed as being the driver of the number 85 car, but he's driver number 1. In theory, he should be the second driver to go in, so that's the only one we're querying, but as long as they get the driver change done, we'll be fine. You can see the mechanics chucking the wheels at their colleagues. It's only the 2 who are allowed that physical contact with the car. They want a nice fast stop, John.
Yeah, and watching Jerome Blancpain sort of heaving. There's something in the, what are they doing? Come on, come on, come on, get it going.
Oh, problem, it's a problem.
Harry Project getting in, and suddenly the car's...
Blancpain still not moving. The 28 Lamborghini, a problem for Blancpain. Sorry, Project in the car, Blancpain outside, shouting at him. They've got it away finally. I wonder what happened there. Is that going to be enough to drop them further back and maybe into the clutches of third place?
I don't know. I mean, you could see that Blancpain was shoving Harry Project by the head to get him into the car, whether that caused an issue with maybe getting the belts attached. But we think that may just about keep the Lamborghini ahead of what would have been the third place Audi that was the René Rast car, now driven by Enzo Ede. So, well, you can just see the battle there. That's where the Enzo Ede Audi is. That's where the Lamborghini is with Harry Project. Remember, Ede has been on track. He knows what the conditions are like. Harry Project's now going to have to go defensive. The best time for Enzo Ede to make a move is now. Flashes the lights, going to look down the inside. Will he be brave? No, he's not.
Ede very brave, in fact, isn't he? On his outlap to take the brakes that late. Hopefully he's got it stopped enough. Holds his line, good job.
So all the stress that Harry Project had to deal with from the team, as if he didn't need to know that he wasn't getting the car rolling, but Enzo Ede again up into turn.
He's just got an extra lap's experience in these conditions, hasn't he, John? So, you know, he's going to be all over him on this first lap. The BMW lets them go.
And that sort of works to the favour of Harry Project. So, still on his outlap, having made that pit stop. Slow getaway, maybe a problem finding the right switch, the right button, whichever. Enzo Ede now using the opportunity to try and put pressure with that little bit of, with the back end of the Audi. Steps out in turn 13, and looks like there maybe is that little bit more rain beginning to fall on the camera lens as the lead car, Cesar Ramos, waiting to see the advantage he has over Harry Project, which was about 13 seconds at the point of the pit stops. By the time well, there is the Lamborghini, and it's going to be a long way behind because of the time lost remaining still. So 23 seconds the gap between the first and second place Audi and Lamborghini.
This then the battle for the second 2 steps on the podium. The first step is very much out of reach now. After all the pit stops have settled, the gap has gone up to 23.9.
Yeah, it says he ain't going to make that ground up. All he's going to do is try and consolidate. And I suppose maybe the best news that Harry Project has got is that Enzo Ede is not at the level of some of the other pro drivers in the Audi teams. Does a good job, but if you had René Rast behind you, or Lawrence Van Thor, even Stefano Telli, or others, Marcus Winkelhock, I think that Harry Project might be feeling a little bit less comfortable than he is. He thinks he's probably got the situation in control, and again, the merest hint of a drying track as the cars make their way down into turns 11 and 12, back onto what was the old original start-finish pits complex here in Nogaro before the track was extended, and then a new complex built much further round, basically at the exit of turn 14.
What do you do about choosing your number 1 and number 2 drivers, John? Do you look at the list of who the other drivers are and see whether or not you compare your fastest drivers up with the other team's fastest drivers? Is it about tomorrow's main race or today's qualifying? There's a lot to think about.
I mean, when you look at teams like Audi and WRT and the leading teams, they've mostly got pretty competent drivers, both in terms of who starts and who gets in. So whichever way around it is, they think they're covering most of their bases. It's probably further down through the field where you're getting maybe somebody coming in who's got little experience in GT racing with somebody who is naturally more experienced, and in that case, you've got to go with the experienced driver at the start of a race. So Enzo Eid has lost the initiative that he basically was given by Harry Project. Harry Project came out and had a slow pit stop loss.
Still
over 10
flashing
seconds.
the lights though, John, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can distract the driver, if you can make your competitor start to look in his mirrors and rather than looking forward, but look one way, look in the mirror inside the car, then you've got his attention. You basically can apply pressure. But Harry Project has managed to open up a gap. It was just under half a second when they came across start-finish line at the end of lap 22. We're on lap 23 of this race. As we go further through the field, the BMW down the inside into turn 7. Well, you think it was going to go through the inside, but it didn't quite make it.
PK's driver partner, Matthias Stumpf, driving the BMW now. And at the wheel of the 34. No, not the 34, my mistake.
So back to this battle there is the lead, that's not the lead car, number 4, was the lead car in effect in the
Silver Cup.
Silver Cup, yes, Silver Cup. So there's only 3 cars sadly running in the Silver Cup this afternoon. The second of the Fortec Mercedes was damaged severely in that incident in qualifying yesterday. So just 3 cars that are running Silver Cup. We got Belgium Audi and one of the 2 BMWs of the SRO Motorsport, and then the Fortec Mercedes-Benz.
The Audi there, a Project running wide. Eid is right back up behind again. There were just a couple of car lengths in between them, so maybe a mistake for Project somewhere around the lap. Eid now all over the back of the Lamborghini again.
Yes, we didn't quite see where Project lost the ground. Enzo Eid on the flasher on the steering column to say, I'm behind you. Again, Project goes defensive, comes back slightly. And again, you can just see on the straight, there's the merest hint of the track beginning to show a drying line, but it's the level of grip. It's a scummy surface now. The wet weather tyre really has got no water to clear. Let's look again and see what Enzo Eid did. And there's Project slightly wrong.
He went defensive, didn't he? He went defensive
yeah.
and took too much speed into the inside.
Yeah, and also Eid came down and put pressure on Project as they came down into turn 4, the entry, and that sort of maybe slightly wrong-footed Harry Project, but seemed to consolidate on the straight. But Eid coming back as Pierre Dudonné, who is an effect race director for the WRT Audi team. He's here along with another former Belgian racing driver, Thierry Tassin, who's assisting with one of the sister Audi factory-backed teams. Thierry Tassin from the 80s and, well, even late 70s. Eid all over the back.
In the mirrors again, isn't he? He's in the mirrors again. He tried it on the straight a moment ago. Project took a defensive line and he just chucked it in behind him and then decided better of it. And as you say, John, just constantly trying to keep the pressure on, keep the distraction going.
He's going to look again. It was into turn 4 where the Audi seemed to have an advantage in terms of front-end bite getting into the first part of 4. The first part of 4 is not really a corner. It's all about getting into the latter part where you have to get a much more defined apex to then give you the straight run up to turn 5, and it's 5 that is the key corner. As we look at René Rast, who did a good job, handed that car over to Enzo Eid in 3rd place and maintains that position. So René Rast, he would have preferred if he'd handed the car over in the lead. Gap now actually has increased with Harry Project, while he's involved in this battle defending 2nd place, has lost a little bit of ground to Cesar Ramos. It's now over 24 seconds, the gap between 1st and 2nd.
Well, if these two continue to hold themselves up, I think Ramos, with 18 minutes left to run, as long as he keeps it sensible, he should be all right. But that's not going to stop nerves on the pit wall, is it?
No, Vincent Valls, the boss of the WR team, you know, always inscrutable looking when he's on the pit lane, very astute team owner, and knows precisely the strengths and weaknesses of any one of all the drivers that are in particular in the WRT team cars, and Enzo Eid giving a great opportunity in that car. Let's look further down the field. Second of So that is actually Maximilian Buch, who has overtaken Mark Hayek in the Lamborghini. There we see Aid again up the inside into turn 2.
Over the
Contact,
curb.
and around him.
Contact, I think he went over the curbs on the inside, John, and that's in the gravel. The 28 car from second place in the gravel. Procek is surely not going to be able to recover the car from there. That is a disaster from where they were. And when we have a look and see, John.
Well, and you have to enter Weed, and it was inevitable. He wasn't up alongside the Lamborghini. He had his left front wheel probably just about alongside the right rear of the Lamborghini, and I would not be surprised if we see a penalty for Enzo Weed for an avoidable incident. He tried to force the issue, but he wasn't sufficiently far alongside the Lamborghini, and the contact that has resulted, there is the result, the Lamborghini getting towed out, and we wait to see whether that will be an incident between car 2 and 28 under investigation. Didn't take very long.
No.
Now the car, I mean, just dragging gravel. Hate to see it. René Rast, you can tell by he knows what's going to happen. His young Belgian teammate is probably going to come in and may serve a drive-through penalty, or maybe a more severe penalty than having a drive-through. But there is the Lamborghini on the outside of turn 2. And what a sad way to see what was actually an interesting
It was a good
race.
fight, wasn't it?
A lot of pressure being asserted by Enzo Weed on the Lamborghini, Harry Procek, and sad it ends up in the gravel trap as it did.
Now that's going to promote into third place Nicky Meyer-Meinhof in the Phoenix Racing Audi R8. I think we're going to be looking at an Audi 123 back on the track, but with outside assistance, John?
Well, I mean, I think if the car will be allowed back on the track, it was in the dangerous. You could see the problem, of course, that the front splitter, the intakes, the air intakes will be filled with gravel. So the car makes its way back. Whether he's going to go into the pit lane and have an examination with the car, or whether he'll continue along, it's hard to say. But Cesar Ramos getting involved with coming up against Alex Zanardi, and
Zanardi is rather holding him up there, maybe.
Yes, and I think quite rightly Cesar Ramos with a 24-second advantage over what will now be Nicky Meyer-Meinhof. In fact, it'll be probably 26 seconds, because that second place Audi had previously been third. So Cesar Ramos, just wait until you get into a bit of the racetrack where you know you can make your overtake without any hesitation. Zanardi, well, I thought he was maybe going to go slightly friendly and let the Audi go down the outside, but no, not the case. So
he can afford to drop a bit of time, can't he? But he still won't be very happy.
There he goes. He pulls over, lets him go through. He's braked a little bit earlier, coming to turn 1. The difficulty when you get held up behind a slower car like that is you might say, well, I've got an advantage, 26 seconds over Nicholas Meyer-Meinhof, but you lose your rhythm, you lose that concentration. And unfortunately, that has happened in the past, but he has got through and on his way.
This 28 car, John, of Harry Procek, you know, he's just been fired off into the gravel. He must be livid. How do you gather yourself up and continue without dropping it again?
Well, that's all going to be left to the hands of the stewards. It's in their discretion as to whether they think that was a fair overtake or whether it was what I would call an avoidable contact. And I would suspect that they're reviewing it, and they've probably got other camera views other than what we're having here on our own TV screens in the commentary booth, and of course our viewers at home. So they will make a judgment, and that judgment might come before this race, with only just over 13 minutes remaining. So we will keep you.
There's a lot of very quick times appearing on the timing screens. It's a light with green. Ramos has done the fastest first sector as well. It's a very traditional sign in the middle of the track, giving you the overall order. I think, in fact, that's
out of date, actually. They've still got their Lamborghini.
28 needs moving a bit further down now. He's unfortunately he's dropped down to 18th project. Yeah. So Ramos and Eid is flying. Look, it's taken 1.3 and 1 seconds off the car in the lead, but again, you know, it's an absolutely huge gap. 22.8 now.
But I tell you, another Audi that's going pretty quickly, and that's Gregory Gilbert. He's sharing his car with Stefan Otelli. He's gone fastest, purple in that first sector, but the trouble is he's got an 11.8 second disadvantage to fourth place, the Brazilian BMW of Sergio Jimenez. So he can certainly get clear air and run hard. But even now, Thomas Enger down in 11th place in Lamborghini number 27. We're looking at the sister car, the 24 car. Thomas Enger showing the pace that we know Thomas Enger's got, but of course, car out of position prior to Enger getting behind the wheel.
We saw Hayek there in the Blancpain Lamborghini, has been passed by the Lukoil-backed SLS. In theory, Dusseldorf at the wheel, although Arseniev showing as the driver. Here's the move, the SLS, lights flashing, pulls out the slipstream, and this was fairly simple, John.
Yeah, this is textbook stuff. I mean, the Lambo acknowledges that there's not very much is going to happen, and just lets the Mercedes sail up the inside. Thomas Enger, we were talking about it briefly. Enger's fastest in first and second sectors, as we are now with 11 minutes and 39 seconds to go. Cacabueno, he looks quite happy with the progress of Jimenez in fourth place, and that is the fourth place BMW. And the gap is closed substantially, down to 1.5 seconds behind Nicky Meyer-Menhoff. Well, in fact, we're looking at Gregory Gilbert, he was 11.2 seconds. So this is potentially a pass for the podium in this race. So no wonder Cacabueno is looking happy, as his Brazilian teammate Sergio Jimenez has got the sights, the laser, right on the rear of that third place BMW. There's Enzo Ede in second place. Still we're waiting to see if there's any action going to be taken. So second, third and fourth are covered by approximately 4 seconds with just over 10 minutes to go.
Jimenez in the BMW, they started in 9th on the grid, Jimenez and Bueno, so this is a good job, isn't it? And I mean, this may end up being a podium, of course, as well, if we do see a penalty for Ede.
It would be a penalty. I mean, that's the sweetest way to get it, because it means you don't have to do the work. But if you're a racing driver, you want to win those positions on track. And if Bueno can find a way to get into really close contention with Nicky Meyer-Menhoff in third place, then if there is a penalty to Enzo Ede, that could translate fourth into second. Sweet.
Chat on the pit wall. You can see the rain stopped. Everybody was hiding underneath umbrellas and the various perches. They're all out now, and still the timing screens are showing greens and purple sectors everywhere. So the track, the grip coming back now as it really starts to dry out. Wipers still on, but that's mostly for spray.
We're seeing fastest sector times now coming in this final 10 minutes of the race. Gregory Gilbert fastest in sector 1, Thomas Enger fastest in sector 3, and a lot of personal bests. Salaquada also in the Ferrari number 90. As we keep focus on Cesar Ramos, comes across start-finish line to complete his 30th lap.
Almost lights to flag for those two at the minute. 10 minutes to go. Van Thor is the man who took the lead very, very early in the race and hasn't been challenged since.
So it is this battle that's going on at Enzo Ede with the Lambo now.
That's the 28 car, which of course he had the problems with earlier on. He's obviously been allowed to lap without any contact. You might have thought that the Lamborghini might have taken matters into his own hands, John.
Yeah, but it's getting between this battle for second and third place, fourth places. So the Lamborghini's between second and third and fourth. So Sergio Jimenez might feel actually that could play to his advantage. In fact, the Lamborghini pulls over to the sides to let Harry Project, that's the sister car, so lets the two battling for third and fourth positions get through. So any advantage that may have gone marginally to Jimenez has now been conceded. But again, the BMW has got the Audi in its sights, and I would rather always be chasing than be chased.
It's a little bit easier, isn't it? When you're being chased, you're just watching the mirrors, trying to pick those braking points, and chasing, you're just applying the pressure, aren't you?
Yes, so let's keep an eye on Meyer-Menhoff, Sergio Jimenez coming through turns 9 and 10. And that short little run was Nelson Piquet Jr., who of course had to make an unscheduled pit stop in his Brazilian BMW, and that car way down the field. Very disappointing indeed for Nelson Jr. to come and in his first Blancpain Sprint event to have to deal with a puncture and lose ground. There's Cacabueno all over the back of
and
Nicky
up the inside.
Got him this time in turn 5. Can he consolidate it? Yes, he can.
Great job. Fantastic move.
And look how much he's pulled away. I mean, simply in that one corner, he just got the drive off turn 5, and already he's opened up the best part of half a second of a gap that Nicky Meyer-Menhoff may have an issue or a problem that we're not aware of. but that, let's look and see, is there contact? There was contact at the back, but
That's,
very slight, nothing that would be of any
It's the 5 car though of Latif. Latif further down the order, and Piquet Jr. unlapping himself.
Getting a bit overexcited there.
Stumpf, sorry, taking over the car from Piquet Jr. Lots to keep up with. Zanardi and teammate back together again, on track at least. In fact, they are fighting for position, the two of them. 15th.
And he's got it. Alex Zanardi has, again, good track position, got up the inside, took control as they came through. That's turn 11. It's a bit of a dogleg before turn 11, then into turn 12. So Alex Zanardi, that'll see him up into 15th position. And you know, considering his first race in a BMW in the Blancpain Sprint, and probably the trickiest of conditions, using a throttle located behind the steering wheel.
Oh, 21 off. That is Matthias Stumpf, who we saw just a moment ago having that fight.
And that's his last position. So whether that again was the consequence of contact, we saw him make up a position, but then he's lost it up in turn 2. So he may just simply have just run out of road. Hopefully we'll maybe get a view of that with only just over 5 minutes remaining. So there we have the onboard shot. Let's look at the feet. The right foot stays planted on the throttle, and a little bit of balancing on the brake.
Now, John, those that have had problems today, of course, it doesn't only affect them, does it, in the qualifying race? It means that they're going to start very, very low on the grid tomorrow as well for the main race.
Yeah, I mean, the points that you win in this qualifying race are, in relative terms, the least of your interests. It is getting track position for the race, the championship race on Monday. Of course, it's Sunday here today. On Monday, Easter Monday in Nogaro. And that's really worked very well so far for the lead 3 Audis. Again, I'm back with Alex Zanardi as you see the throttle being opened and closed. And I mean, to do all that on the steering wheel, it's remarkable. I think this man is an absolute genius.
Multitasking. You can use the throttle with either hand. You can see there his left finger's using the throttle. It's a very, very clever system of pivots.
But one of the things with Alex, when you meet him, he always has had enormous hands. Even when I met him back in the early 90s. But because of all the other sporting activities and Paralympics as well, he's got hands absolutely enormous. I shook hands with him yesterday. I had to go to the medical centre.
He was very, very proud as well of the method he's made to get into the car. You can actually see it in the back of the shop just under the roll cage. It's like an extra roll cage bar, and it's actually a handle which he uses to lift himself into the car. He said the team were a bit busy, so I made it myself. And he was really, really pleased with the way that fitted inside the door. He'd measured it, cut it, welded it all himself. So still very, very hands-on. The guy just loves racing, and it's fantastic to see him back in a racing car. Although he's got his racing wheelchair with him this weekend in the truck.
And he's putting a little bit of pressure on 14th place. And, you know, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that we're going to see that Miguel Toril in the Fortec Mercedes-Benz under pressure from Zanardi. 3 3/4 minutes remaining, best part of this lap and 1 lap more before they'll go on to the final lap. So Zanardi has got finally a feel for the levels of grip around the racetrack, and he's probably the full-on race chip put into place now. He is a racing driver. He's not just out there driving around, he's racing.
John, the investigation into the second place car of Enzo Eid, is that likely to take place after the race now? Would you have expected a drive-through if they were going to do something about it, or might it be a steward's penalty when the race is finished?
I would have thought if those stewards were going to penalise them, they would have done it before this race concludes. We have to wait and see. I mean, it's a quick race. It happened just after the midway point, so whether they've considered that and decided on a penalty or not, no doubt we will find out, but that we won't be able to bring until we get into the championship round on Monday.
So Eid continuing to run in second place after that contact earlier in the race, which saw the Lamborghini spun off. Harry Project ended up in the gravel. Great shame for him. A decent fight for second place, and it is still under investigation. You see at the top of your screen there, incident between cars 2 and 28. Here's another look at it. Up the inside. Eid, late on the brakes, uses all the... In fact, he's got two wheels on the grass on the way into the corner there. Carrying speed in, he had track position, but was he far enough up the inside for the stewards to think that there was no penalty to be paid for that? Eid second now on track, and Project 18th, dropping from second to 18th, so very, very disappointing for him. 2 minutes left to run. At the moment we have an Audi 123 BMW that you can see there. It's the car of Caca Bueno and Sergio Jimenez at the wheel at the moment. Jimenez chasing down that third place just in front. Meyer Milnhoff, love to snatch it off him, and of course if he does, if something did happen to Eid, if there was a penalty, it could move him up to second place, which would be great from 9th on the grid. There are the times at the bottom of your screen: 0.7 and 0.1 and 0.3 of a second over the last 3 laps, but he's got to get the pass done, and we've seen that's taken people a long, long time. 1 minute 10 left to run. Looks like it's going to be the final lap. Cesar Ramos has a lead of 19.5 seconds, so at its peak it was 25, but that's not going to matter whether it's 1 second or 25 seconds when he crosses the finish line at the end of the hour. He'll be able to claim victory in this first race of the Blancpain Sprint Series 2014. Great job by them. At the moment it's an Audi 123. 35 seconds left to run. Just this battle between Meyer Milnhoff in the Audi and Jimenez in the BMW. Trying hard, you can hear the engines cackling away as they try to lay down the power from these fantastic GT3 spec cars. I think he's too far back, Jimenez. He's going to have to settle for 4th. I hope the stewards do something to Eid, which means he can move up a spot. Ramos in car number 1. A couple of turns to go. He's going to be crossing the finish line, taking the checkered flag. Great job by him and Van Thor. Through the right and the left-hander, onto the start-finish straight. There's the checkered flag. It's a win then for Cesar Ramos and Lawrence Van Thor in the first round of Blancpain Sprint Series. Great job by them. Basically unchallenged from the second turn onwards. Eid crosses the line in second place. Will we see a penalty or not? And in third, Meyer Milnhoff. Right behind him, Jimenez in the BMW. So couldn't get the job done. Finished just a couple of seconds back. 17.6 second gap for the winner. Cesar Ramos really, really backed it off, wound it in on that last lap. Fantastic, fantastic job by them. We never really quite saw what happened to Blancpain in the first turn. Seemed to go well. He got into turn 1 in the lead, but by the time he came out of turn 3 and 4 onto the back straight.
It's now okay for enter. The only difference is the tyre.
Just listening in. See if there's anything said.
But immediately he was faster.
Bit of a chat there about tyre pressures and who was faster, so driver chat. But there is our race winner. Cesar Ramos at the wheel now, taking over from Van Thor. Quite late in the pit window, about 35 minutes I think it was in. Well, just before the pit window shut at 35 minutes. Had a decent clean stop. To be fair, Blancpain didn't have the greatest of changeovers to Harry Procek. Of course, that dropped him into the clutches then of Eid, who changed with René Rast, and then the contact came. So maybe if that pit stop had gone according to plan, Procek would have had just enough of a cushion. There was about 10 seconds between second and third place at that point. Might have had enough time and might not have come under pressure in the first place. So I'm sure the team will be looking into everything that happened. Of course, Procek finishing in the end in 18th, so they'll be starting right from the back of the grid, and it'll be fascinating to see what they can do tomorrow. We know how quick they are as a pairing, whether or not they can fight their way back up Zanardi finished 15th. That's of interest because, of course, again, on the first lap, he ran onto the grass and ended up right at the back of the field. So he made up 4 or 5 spots, not so bad. There'll be a few disappointed people. A great first race for Blancpain Sprint Series here at Nogaro. Kuda Pack. Today, of course, qualifying race. Don't forget that tomorrow is the main race because it's the Easter weekend meeting. Traditionally, the second race is on the Monday here. Down in Parc Fermé. Incredible noise from the cars. There is the man of the moment, Cesar Ramos. I'm sure the first person to greet him will be Lawrence Van Thor. Brilliant, brilliant drive. Pressure's off now, gloves off too. Fantastic job. Smiles all round. Great pairing. And a win in the first round of Blancpain Sprint Series. Over to greet the team. Everybody happy with the result. It's Aston Enzo Eid. Still be interested to see whether or not anything comes of that contact in the race. They look pleased but slightly disappointed. So let's have a chat with Lawrence Van Thor.
Congratulations, Laurent. You and Cesar, you made it look really very easy.
Yeah, we're starting to be a great romantic couple. I think the car was very good. The end, the pressures were a bit too high and to back off a bit, but yeah, the pace was just great. And I owe it to my engineer and the team, and then Cesar just finished the job in a perfect way. And yeah, hope tomorrow can be a bit like that. It doesn't have to be fully, so already a bit, and will be a good job.
You took your chances into turn 1 on the opening lap alongside Jeroen Bleekemolen. Do you think his lack of knowledge and experience in the Lamborghini really played to your strengths?
Well, if I remember right, he never drove here in the rain before, and to be very honest, yesterday evening when I was in my bed, I was thinking how corner 2 has to be the place, and yeah, I kind of tried it and it worked out. So that was very good, and it helped us because we got immediately free and we could make a gap, and it made the race a bit easier.
Pole position tomorrow?
Yeah, pole position. I hope we can do a good start and then make a gap and cruise to the win. It will be a dream race.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, a bit of insight there into the mind of a racing driver. Lawrence Van Thor last night lying in bed thinking about where he might be able to make the pass today. He's right, Bleekemolen hasn't driven here in the wet. In fact, Bleekemolen hasn't driven here at all before. So, great job. Wanted to do it in turn 2 and got it done. Let's have a chat with Cesar Ramos.
Well done, Cesar. Nice to see the victory, number 1.
Yeah, it's my first race in this championship, and in the winning car with the winning teammate. So I think it's the right recipe, and we did a good job together. The team did a wonderful job, WRT. The car was amazing, thanks to Audi to give a car like this for us. And yeah, it's amazing to begin the championship with a win, the year with a win. Let's keep it up and try to do it again tomorrow.
Well, you're starting in pole position. It's up to you really at the start, isn't it?
Yeah, I do a good job. I have to do a good job in pole position now and give to Lawrence the car in P1 as he gave me today.
Well done. Nice to see you. Thank you.
No pressure then for Ramos. I'm sure he will be thinking about that this evening as well. Just got to make sure he can hold on in turn 1 tomorrow. The weather forecast is mixed for tomorrow as well. And we're going to have a little chat with Enzo Eid.
Enzo, you came out 3rd place behind Harry Project in the Lamborghini, and then in turn 2, contact. What's your version of it?
Unfortunately, there was contact, but I cannot do anything about it. I was on the inside, I was on the dry line, he was on the wet, and he tried to come back, and yeah, we hit each other. So I'm sorry for him, but it was not I didn't want to do it, so it just happened. I was, I think, a little bit faster than him, so I tried to overtake him already a few times, and he made a small mistake on the entry. I went to the inside, and then he came back and we got contact. So I'm really sorry, but I didn't do it on purpose. So.
Well, you apologised to him about it. Thanks, Thank
you.
Well, that's Enzo Eads' side of the story. I didn't want to do it, but he said there was a mistake and that he'd managed to find a bit of space up the inside. He went for that gap and the gap closed, but he is going to say that, of course, because he's still under investigation. So whilst you're under investigation, I think you're always going to play it very safe. Be interesting to see whether or not the stewards have the same opinion or not. So there is the result then. It's a 1-2-3 for Audi with Team WRT in the first two places and Phoenix Racing. Ramos and Van Thor a faultless drive. Eid and Rast, that one mistake from Eid, and we'll see what happens with that. Maya Melnhoff and Winkelhock, and then Jimenez and Bueno. Great drive from them from 9th on the grid. Gregory Gilbert and Stefan Ortelli, last year's one half of last year's championship partnership, is in 5th. Book and Gotts in 6th. And then as we get further down the order, Eng and Halleck, Latifa Basseng, Onidi and Pantano round out the top 12. Here's the remainder of the field. Of course, only the 19 cars here, because we had that shunt yesterday for one of the two SLSs from Fortec. Hayek and Cox managed to hold on to 13th. That's not a bad result either for the Pro-Am pair. And bringing up the rear of the field was Stumpf and Piquet Jr., of course, after that puncture early in the race. They'll be disappointed with that, and even more disappointed with the fact they're going to have to start from the back of the grid tomorrow, but it's going to make for a fantastic main race, seeing some of these drivers who've suffered problems trying to fight their way back. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for the main race live tomorrow. Same start time for the race and the same duration, of course. Blancpain Sprint Series, 2 1-hour races. Decent fight all the way through. No time for tactics. So if you want to get the pass done, you've got to get it done immediately. And as the drivers heading in to pick up their silverware, they'll be out onto the podium shortly. Great job by Ramos and Van Thor. Congratulations from the engineers, from Team WRT as well. That, I believe, is actually Andrew Jordan's brother-in-law, British touring car champion engineer, as well as doing some work on Blancpain Sprint Series. I'm sure they'll be very pleased with the result this weekend. An Audi 1-2-3 is absolutely fantastic start to the season. Maybe worrying for some of the other teams, but of course wet conditions today, and there are a lot of Audis in the field, so job done. Joined by the rest of the guys who are due to head out to the podium. Out onto the podium, a very happy Cesar Ramos and Lawrence Van Thor. Ramos with his Brazilian flag. Extremely happy to be stood on the top step. Great job by those two. And it's an Audi fest up on the podium. Fantastic. Relief from the wall and the national anthem. Brilliant job then, John, and I'm very happy with the result, it seems.
Lawrence Van Thor, Cesar Ramos really had the easiest of days of anybody. All the good work was done in the opening corner, really, once Lawrence Van Thor got ahead of the Lamborghini of Jerome Blake and Mullen. And Cesar Ramos, when he was given the car with some 24 seconds advantage, all he had to do was just keep out of trouble, drive a clean race. Did that, precisely what he was asked to do. So they're two very happy drivers. Enzo Eid, have to say, trying to justify his manoeuvre, and I think that's down to the race stewards to determine whether that was a racing incident or whether it was an avoidable incident. And I've got my views. I'll wait and see what the stewards say. The other person I bumped into was Alex Zanardi, who, as we were mentioning in the early part of the commentary, was really struggling with the BMW. I think that was the first time he'd driven it in wet conditions, more like slick conditions than rain. And again, this thing of the turning of the steering wheel with the throttle ring attached to that, you know, it's very difficult to feel the amount of throttle. But by the end of the race, he said, we saw that he was really pushing hard, and he did some very good lap times towards the end of his stints.
I was fascinated with what Van Thor said. He was very calculating. He thought last night that the place to get it done was turn 2, and then he just did it.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Laurens Van Thor is the class of the field in many respects in GT racing, be it Blancpain or other sorts of racing, and he knows the Audi inside out. The WRT team will have given him a car with the ability to do all the things that he was able to carry out. And again, remember, Jerome Bleekemolen, I don't think had driven the Lamborghini in wet conditions. He'd only had a couple of sighting laps before coming onto the grid, and therefore it was all in the favour of Laurens Van Thor to make a very strong move as early as possible, rather than getting caught behind. Remember, Jerome Bleekemolen is not somebody who's going to concede ground. Very, very experienced in GT racing, in fact, just very experienced in motor racing terms.
So the drivers being given lots of local delicacies, as is the tradition at the Coup de Pack meeting here at Nogaro. I'm spraying some of those local delicacies straight off the podium, as always.
Yeah, and always a very happy scene as you see the drivers plus team personnel that are up. Enzo Ede, well, he's probably walking on eggshells right now to know whether his second place, whether that's going to be challenged by an excursion, let's put it this way, down to the steward's room, and whether that will mean a penalty, and that would then of course elevate the Brazilian BMW of Sergio Jimenez and Caco Bueno, which finished 4th and was only 1.8 seconds behind Meyer Melnhof in 3rd place. So we could actually potentially see a penalty to car number 2, Enzo Ede, which would have been a disappointment, because René Rast, who started in that car, he'll be thinking, you know, what have I got here? Have I got a driver who's not going to be able to match what I can provide, or he's going to be, you know, somebody who's going to get caught up in incidents which are avoidable?
How did they look down there together? Did they look comfortable, or was there an awkwardness?
I didn't really see René Rast when I was down there. Enzo was a lot of people around him, and I think a lot of team personnel around him as well. And of course, he needs to be cautious in anything that he might say, which would be recorded on camera, to be used against him.
Indeed.
So he was very careful about what he said, and I tried to lead him into saying, well, basically,
this is the Silver Cup podium coming up now. Silver Cup, of course, for young drivers under 25, trying to encourage them to take a career in GT racing. It's Mateusz Lizowski and Vincent Abril who have stood on top of the podium. Great job by them.
Surprise at WRT Audi as well. So good job by those young drivers. You know, the Silver Cup is there to encourage young up-and-coming drivers who are looking for avenues to develop their careers, and that's an example of it. Mateusz Lizowski and Vincent Abril.
They will be very pleased, and I think joining them on the podium there, that looks like Mark Hayek and Peter Cox, who of course are the winners of the Pro-Am Trophy at this end of the podium.
Yeah, with Peter Cox, you know, hugely experienced, and again, all forms of motor racing, GT racing, anything with a roof on it, in fact anything without a roof earlier in his life, as we look at the 2 young winners of the Silver Trophy, Silver Cup.
Well, that was a great first race then for Blancpain Sprint Series. This was off the start. Bleekemolen in the Lamborghini got into turn 1 on his own in the lead, but it was turn 2 where Van Thor said he'd had a good think about it and he wanted to get the pass done. This was the puncture, of course, for Nelson Piquet Jr. Destroyed a tyre just 3 minutes before the pit window opened, and then a slow pit stop and changeover for Bleekemolen meant that he fell. His teammate fell into the clutches of Enzo Ede, and this was the result. Enzo Ede tapped Harry Project off. Harry Project buried in the gravel. They dragged the car out, but he only finished in 18th place. Great first win of the season for Laurens Van Thor and Cesar Ramos. Great job. Fantastic race. We will look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the main race from Nogaro.